Here is everything you need to know to get the most out of the brand new update where you can trade 5 reds to a knife. And a huge part of this, of course, is knowing which skins, which collections can be upgraded to which knives. And I made this super elaborate chart. I made the resolution way too big so I can really zoom it in. All you need to know is there are 3 distinct types of weapon finishes across a bunch of different knives. And then there's also 3 different glove collections. But all you really need to know is there are 3 sets of knife finishes in the entire game. You have the OG knives, which include the case hardened, crimson web, fade, safari mesh, slaughter, vanilla, urban mast, blue steel, scorched, and safari mesh. There's a lot. To get the first set of finishes in karambits, gut knives, bayonets, M9s, or flip knives. And all the collections you can get all the OG knives in are, of course, the summer 2014 case with the bullet rain as well as the jaguar, the x-ray from the winter 2013 case, the fire elemental or the wasteland rebel from the vanguard case, the kraken or the M4 Asimov from the winter offensive case, of course the fire serpent or the golden koi in the bravo case, the R8 revolver fade or the M4 royal paladin from the revolver case, the lightning strike from weapon case 1, the blood in the water from weapon case 2, and the CZ Victoria from weapon case 3. Plus there's the Asimov or the chameleon from the phoenix case, and last but not least the P250 death by kitty from the esports 2013 case. So any of these are pretty much all in the exact same category. All these skins can be used to trade up for the exact same collection of knives. And this is the collection that by far has the most cases going towards it. But it gets a little bit more complicated too, because there are all the dedicated cases as well that do have the exact same finishes, but with a very specific knife in mind. With either the Aquamarine Revenge or the Op Hyper Beast from the Felchen collection, you can get a Felchen knife. With the P90 Asimov or a M4 A1S Cyrex, you can get all the butterfly knives from the Breakout collection. For the CS20 case, you either need the Wildfire or the Commemoration, and you can get yourself some classic knives for any 1.6 players out there. Although these aren't really that sought after, like they're not really super popular. And I feel like either of these are probably overall better play skins, especially the Wildfire. But I mean, hey, you do you. Classic knife blue gem, right? From the Wildfire collection, there's the Battlestar and the Fuel Injector, and it's all Bowie knives. The Shadow case, you can either trade up the Kill Confirmed or the Golden Coil for basically plugs. If you know, you know. And of course, for the Huntsman knives, you either need a Vulcan or a Desert Strike. But of course, never trade up a Vulcan for these absolute abominations. The Desert Strike is by far the better option if you do, for whatever reason, want a Huntsman knife, even though they're kind of mid. All right, but there are, of course, more of the original finishes. There are the Horizon knives, which, of course, are the exact same finishes as before, but with the inclusion of the Stiletto, the Navaja, the Ursus knife, of course, and the Talon knife. And you can either use the Horizon case with the Deagle Code Red or the AK Neo Noir. There's also the Danger Zone collection, which has the AK Asimov and the Op Neo Noir. But to be honest though, like actually all of these are pretty sick play skins, so trading these up, I mean, it's only going to make them more expensive over time. There's also the Shattered Web knives, which did come out with Operation Shattered Web, and this finally brought in the Paracord knife, the Skeleton. There's also the Survival and the Nomad knife. And to be honest, I guess the Nomad's cool because Simple used it, but the Skeleton is definitely what you're looking for from this collection. From the Shattered Web case, you can use the Stalker or the Op Containment Breach, but I think the better option for trade ups is the Fracture case with the Legion of Anubis and the Print Stream. The Legion of Anubis is quite a bit cheaper for trade ups, but as the supply runs lower and lower, the Print Stream might honestly be the better option. We'll have to wait and see long term. And last but not least, the most recent 2 cases included the Kukri knives. And believe it or not, this is actually the first time in Counter-Strike history that there has been 2 cases for one specific type of knives. Because when you follow the trends, all these different operations just have one case. And then with the release of CS2, they basically made Kukri knives twice as common because you can get these from both the Kilowatt and the Gallery case. And who knows if they're going to add a third. But of course, there is the Chrome Cannon and the Inheritance from the Kilowatt case. And then in the Gallery case, you can either use the Gold Tooth or the Vaporwave. But why would you ever use a Vaporwave for a trade up? Such an aesthetic skin. Oh, that's way too zoomed in. And there are 2 other knife finishes that do exist. There are the Chroma knives that did come out with the original Chroma case. And of course, with the Chroma knives, this is when they finally added in rubies, sapphires, black pearls, all that stuff. Even the marble fades, or it's all the original knives, but with completely different finishes. They finally added the rust coat, which is nice, ultraviolet, Marble Fade, Tiger Tooth, Damascus Steel, and of course the Doppler, where they have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Phase 2 is probably the best. And then rubies, sapphires, and black pearls. Rubies and sapphires are about 1 in 10 if you do pull one, and then black pearls are 1 in 100, so they are very rare. But of course, you can get them from the Chroma 1 collection from either the Chatterbox or the Mana War, the Chroma 2 collection with the Mac 10 Neon Rider or the M4A1S Hyper Beast, and the Chroma 3 collection with the Judgment of Anubis or the Chantika's Fire, or as I call it, the Ketchup and Mustard Machine. I mean, it's a cool skin, but it looks like it's made out of condiments. And then they finally released the Spectrum knives, which is the Chroma finishes, but of course, for all the distinct Operation knives, falchions, butterflies, the CS20 knives, the classic knives, bowies, shadow daggers, and huntsmans. So they took all of these cases and put them all into a single case and gave them all Chroma finishes. So of course, rubies, sapphires, black pearls, all that good stuff you know and love. And of course, you can get them from the Spectrum 1 case with either the USPS Neo Noir or the AK Bloodsport. And there's also the Spectrum 2 case with the P250 Seal Later or the AK Empress. With a butterfly ruby, like, this is definitely one of the top tier knives in the game. So these are definitely a lot more sought after than a lot of the other collections. Anyways, later on they did release the Prisma knives, which of course were the Horizon knives, but with the brand new Chroma finishes. And there's the Prisma 1 case with the 5.7 Angry Mob and the M4 the Emperor. This is a really bad screenshot of it. This does not do it justice. It doesn't look this bad. And then there was the Prisma 2 case with the Bullet Queen and the Player 2. After the release of CS2, they did the Kilowatt case, and the first official case in the armory was the Fever case. And this introduced basically all of the Shattered Web knives, but in the Chroma finishes. All that stuff that you know and love, but the only 2 skins that can be traded up for it are the FAMAS Bad Trip. Obviously, you should be using these for trade ups, not the print stream, and of course the Op print stream, which is still extremely expensive. Honestly, just because it is one of the best, most craftable Op play skins in the game. And it's from a case that's relatively cheap, and you can get your hands on it for either, well, like $1 on the market, or you can get yourself an armory pass and just redeem these. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of these in circulation for pretty much the near future. I mean, just based on like a lot of the trends, they typically release 2 cases for each set. So they're probably going to be adding another case with Fever knives at some point in the future. But then again, like, Valve has been doing a lot of things that have been very unpredictable lately. So it's super hard to say 100%. As of right now, the Fever case is the only case where you can get a skeleton knife, ruby, sapphire, or black pearl. That's one thing that kind of makes it actually a top tier case. And now we're getting into the third set of different knives that did release, the Gamma knives. And believe it or not, these came out in 2016. Anyways, for the Gamma knives, of course, these are the original knives that did come out in the OG knife case, as well as the Chroma knives. But it does come with the Gamma finishes, which of course include the black laminates, the lore, freehand, Autotronic, which in my opinion is one of my favorites. There's the Brightwater, and of course, most notably, the Gamma Doppler. To be honest, all the regular fades, they do look okay, but I feel like the cream of the crop, the best of the best, is the Emerald. You can get them from anything from the Gamma collection, well, I guess the first Gamma case, with either the Wasteland Rebel or the M4A1S Mecha Industries. And there was also the Gamma 2 case, which had the Neon Revolution, or as I call it, the Joker AK, and the FAMAS Roll Cage, which is actually still, it has gone up, of course, but I mean, yeah, this is definitely the cheapest skin to use for trade ups. And then with Operation Riptide, they basically did the Spectrum knives, but of course with the Gamma finishes, Butterfly Knife Lore, Butterfly Knife Emerald, those are just sick. Like, they are some of the best knives in the game, in my opinion. And of course, you can get them from the Riptide collection, the Riptide case, with either the Deagle Ocean Drive or the Op Elite Museo. And of course, most notably, the Dreams and Nightmares case, which is still currently in the drop pool. You still can get these from drops. You know, they're still relatively common, but this is kind of why these might be a really good long-term investment, because once they leave the pool, they're going to have to compete with these. They're going to have to compete with the Riptide case, and it's going to be really tough. There's the Starlight Protector, and of course, the AK-47 Nightwish. Although the actual like play skins in this case aren't really the best, in my opinion, I do like the Nightwish. It is kind of nice though, with the pearlescent effect. I mean, the main reason why the Dreams and Nightmares is so expensive expensive even right now, Butterfly Emerald. And that's pretty much every knife collection that has ever been released. But we also have the gloves, which there aren't really that many when you think about it. So there were, of course, the first collection of gloves, which did include, honestly, probably some of the best gloves to ever come out, with the Pandora's boxes, the hedge mazes, the superconductors, of course. There's also, of course, the spearmints, the crimson kimonos, the arids even, like those are pretty nice. The emerald webs. This was just an absolutely just top tier collection. You can either get them from trading up either stuff in the glove case, the Dragonfire, or the Buzzkill. Both of these have shot up in price so much, especially in factory new, just because of that small chance of getting factory new Pandora's boxes. Yeah, these are pretty expensive. And then of course there was the Operation Hydra case, which is a lot more rare. And there's the 5.7 Hyper Beast or the Op Oni Taiji. The second collection of gloves, or as I call them, Gloves V2. This was honestly kind of a letdown from the first glove case just because it was so good. But of course there are a few gloves in this collection that do stand out, like the amphibious gloves, the vices, the fades, the imperial plaids is like a cheaper alternative to the Pandoras. The cobalt skulls, I used to have these. They looked so sick with 661 blue gems. King snakes. And then they finally added the crimson web gloves, the duct tapes, my favorite. You can either get them from the clutch case, which is still surprisingly really cheap at like around $1. And there's the M4 Neo Noir and the MP7 Bloodsport. There's also the Revolution case, which is still currently in the drop pool. It's still currently dropping, and you can either trade it up with a Temaku or an AK headshot. But the problem with basically all of these skins, because you can't get stat track gloves, basically if you have anything from these collections that are stat track, you cannot trade them up. So unfortunately, I do have a stat track factory new Dragonfire and it can't be traded up. But the one benefit of that is it is, in my opinion, it's one of the best scout play skins by far in the game. So like the only way to have one that you're going to be able to keep basically forever is to get stat track factory new. That is one benefit of stat track if you never want it to be traded up. And honestly, like as the supply goes down, StatTrack might really be the only option that's somewhat viable. Same goes for the Clutch and the Revolution collections. And then they released a third, and then I guess you'd call these like the Broken Fang gloves, and these released around the time of Operation Broken Fang. This was probably the most mid glove collection, although it's still not terrible because you do have the sports gloves slingshots, which are effectively red Pandoras. There's also the Tiger Strikes, which do look pretty nice. The black ties, which look really clean with pretty much anything. The Snow Leopards, the Nocts, and they also added in the Marble Fade gloves. But the thing about this collection is they released it for 3 separate cases. So these are actually a lot more common than the 2 other glove cases. Anyways, there's the Recoil case, which currently still is dropping with either the USPS Print Stream or the Op Chromatic Aberration. The Snakebite case, which actually did recently leave circulation a little while ago. And you can either use the Living in Color or the USPS The Trader. And the OG, the most expensive case currently where you can get these gloves, Operation Broken Fang case with the Glock Neo Noir and the M4A1S print stream. So anyways, that is pretty much everything you need to know. That is every skin that you can trade up for every type of knife, any type of glove. And if you guys need to refer back to this, you can join the Discord. I'll have a channel specifically for this, or of course you can just rewatch the video. Yeah, this took way too long to make. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe with the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. It's Turbo and I'm out. Peace.